Alright folks, it's that time again to dust off our financial crystal balls and see what 2025 had in store. Fasten your seatbelts, because this year was a roller coaster ride of gains and losses across various sectors. Quarter 1, 2025, January to March. Let's kick things off with the first quarter, where the consumer cyclical sector, think auto sales and retail, saw significant volatility. This sector actually took a hit in the first quarter, falling by around 8%. Meanwhile, basic materials had a decent start, gaining about 4% during this period. On the other hand, technology stocks were on their knees, plummeting by approximately 17%. That's right, folks. It wasn't all sunshine and rainbows for our tech giants in Q1. Financial services also took a dip, but not as steeply, dropping around 6%. Quarter 2, 2025, April to June. Moving on to the second quarter, things started picking up pace, especially for basic materials, which surged by roughly 7%. The industrial sector also saw strong performance, climbing nearly 13%. However, consumer cyclical continued its rough ride, losing around 8% more. The financial services sector clawed back some ground, gaining about 12%. But the technology sector was still in a slump, only recovering slightly with an increase of roughly 9%. Quarter 3, 2025. July to September. By the time we hit quarter 3, basic materials were on a tear, once again, rising by another 5%. The industrial sector kept its momentum going strong, gaining around 3% more. Meanwhile, consumer cyclical finally began showing some signs of life, rebounding with a healthy gain of nearly 13%. However, financial services saw their gains dwindle slightly as the quarter ended, dropping about 4%. Technology stocks continued to struggle, but managed a small recovery, gaining around 5%. Quarter 4, 2025, October to December. In the final stretch, basic materials maintained its strong performance, climbing another 5%. The industrial sector also remained robust with an additional gain of about 3%. Financial services had a bit of a bumpy ride, but still ended on a positive note, gaining around 1%. Consumer cyclical wrapped up the year on a high note, finishing with yet another strong quarter, and adding approximately 5% to its gains. Technology stocks finally found their footing again, rising about 12% by the end of the year. Market cap segment. Insights. The large cap segment, which tracks Nifty 50 index companies, was quite resilient throughout the year, gaining roughly 11% overall. Mid caps also had a solid showing with gains around 6%. Small caps were the underperformers in this category, only managing to eke out a slight gain of about 2% by the end of the year. Overall yearly performance summary. So how did our sectors fare on an annual basis? Basic materials shone brightly, ending up with gains around 17%. Industrials followed closely behind with nearly 15% growth. Consumer cyclical came back strong from its early struggles, finishing the year with a solid gain of about 8%. Technology stocks had their ups and downs, but managed to finish the year on a positive note, gaining roughly 9% overall. Financial services also ended up in the green after a rocky start, rising around 6% for the year. Consumer defensive held steady, gaining about 7%. Healthcare was another consistent performer with gains of nearly 8%. Energy had a mixed year, but still managed to end on a high note with an increase of roughly 13%. Real estate, however, struggled throughout the year, losing around 15% overall. Utilities were also in the red, finishing down by about 4%. Commodity performance. Commodities saw some significant movements too. Gold was definitely the star of the show, soaring by an impressive 76% over the course of the year. Silver wasn't far behind, gaining a whopping 120% as global demand surged and supply constraints tightened. Closing summary with key takeaways. In summary, 2025 was a tale of two halves for many sectors. Basic materials and industrials led the pack in terms of consistent gains, while consumer cyclical rebounded strongly from its early struggles. Technology stocks saw their fair share of volatility, but managed to finish the year on a high note. The large cap segment outperformed small caps, which remained lackluster throughout the year. Commodity prices, especially gold and silver, witnessed staggering increases, making them standout performers in an otherwise tumultuous market. So there you have it. 2025 was a year of ups and downs, but some sectors definitely shone brighter than others. Stay tuned for more financial insights because the markets never rest.